Hi, this is Teddy, and today you're listening to Jillian Freeland in Colorado on Two Broads Talking Politics, part of the Demcast Podcast Network.
Are you listening?
Hi everyone, this is Kelly with Two Broads Talking Politics, part of the Demcast family of podcasts, and I am joined today by Jillian Freeland, who is running for Congress in the Colorado 5th District. Hi, Jillian.
Hi, good evening, or good morning, or whatever time people are enjoying their podcast. Yes.
Yeah. I used to think people listen in the mornings on their drive into work, but I don't think that many people are driving to work anymore, so...
I know that my partner's been work at home, and he actually works in auto insurance, which driving is one of the most dangerous things we do every day. And so they've actually seen a huge reduction in people getting hurt in car accidents. So that's kind of a unexpected side effect of COVID.
Yeah. So let's start with just some information about you. Tell me a little bit about your background and why you're running for Congress.
Well, my background is why I'm running for Congress. I'm a women's reproductive health care provider. I love helping people bring babies into this world. And this is an extension of that work because, anytime you work in women's health care, there's some activism that is required in the position. And especially when you live in a district that is represented by a person like Congressman Lamborn, because he works very hard to restrict reproductive rights and to strip civil rights from women and from LGBTQ individuals. And so he accidentally encouraged me to run for office because I gathered a few friends and, people of diverse backgrounds in terms of religion and race and political ideology. And we went to visit his office here in Colorado Springs. I was there because I wanted to share my experience as a healthcare provider and hopefully help create some legislation that puts patients at the center of our healthcare policy, because my experience in the system says that that's not where we are right now. And his staff was not interested in talking to us. They actually told us that it's not his job to represent everyone and that doing so would compromise his morals. And so since he's uncomfortable with the job, I decided
representative.
To run for it. Yeah, job title. I understand the nature of this district. I knew it was going to be a hard fight. And so I spent a couple years preparing for my run. I was trained by Emerge. I've done a lot of Emily's List trainings. And because this whole world of campaigning and politics is strange. It's honestly the weirdest thing I've ever done. And I catch babies. And so that training was really critical so that I could run a smart and efficient campaign. And I also joined some community boards so that I could get experience, with Robert's Rules of Order and the business side of running a community. I joined the Community Corrections Board for my county because I wanted to get a deeper look into our criminal justice system and see what's happening right here at home, so that I can be an effective legislator on Capitol Hill. I also joined the Board of Adjustment, which is a real estate zoning issue, which I found interesting because, Colorado Springs is now the 5th most expensive city in the country to live in. And it's not an affluent city. People are struggling. And, as a middle-class millennial, my perspective is not really represented in Congress. And it's an experience that's shared by millions of Americans, that fight to make the mortgage payment and put healthy food on the table and pay those student loan payments and try to make good choices for our families. And so I want to see those priorities reflected in Congress, and that's just not what we're seeing come out of Capitol Hill. The policies that are being pushed forward do not serve families. And I've got 2 little girls who need a bright future to grow up in, and they need a country that is operating in a little more efficient and compassionate manner.
Yes, indeed. So tell me a little bit about this district then. So you mentioned that Colorado Springs is in the district. It's, as you mentioned, a hard fight. This is not a super blue district by any means. So tell me a little bit about the district and the people in it, and then what you see it as sort of your path to victory in a race like this.
Oh, you're going to let me nerd out real hard here now.
Yes, please.
So Colorado Springs is the main population center of the district. It also includes several counties that have smaller towns and then very rural areas. And it makes it a challenge to campaign, and unfortunately leaves a lot of those counties kind of out. Because it just, from a logistics standpoint, is easier to campaign in Colorado Springs. And so one of the things that I have heard is from people who live in the rural counties is that, as much as they like me and want me to represent them, when reapportionment happens, they don't belong with Colorado Springs because they are being left out of conversations. And so one of the things that I committed to very early was holding town halls in every part of the district every year. And that is not an experience that the residents of CD5 have benefited from. The last time Congressman Lamborn held a town hall was in April of 2017. He showed up for that because of pressure from grassroots activists like myself. We worked very hard. We held a couple of with or without you town halls that we recorded and sent to him. And after months of that, he finally came and held very small town halls. In fact, my partner left work to come attend, and the venue was so small that at least 50 people who had come were not permitted to enter because of fire code. And additionally, it was held in a police station, which, I mean, right now we have a major reckoning going on nationwide with the relationship that police have with their communities. And so the decision to hold a town hall in a police station excluded a lot of people. And, it goes back to that belief that a representative represents everyone and needs to be accessible and accountable to everyone in the district. And so I spent the last few years continuing to try to get the voices of the constituents heard. The office manager for Senator Cory Gardner here in Colorado Springs recognizes my voice when I call. Because that's our duty, is to hold our elected officials accountable. And sometimes the only way we can do that is to give them a call or send them a letter. And when I started formally preparing for this run, of course, there's a big look at the voter registration demographics, and the makeup of the representation over the last several decades has been Republican, from county commission all the way up through. And what is interesting and what gives me hope and makes me confident that we can actually win this race is that in the last 4 years, which may or may not be related to the Trump administration, the voter registration demographics have actually flipped from a strong majority Republican to a very strong majority unaffiliated. And that is a function of both Republicans leaving the party and new voters registering unaffiliated and joining the Democratic Party. And so now unaffiliated voters are the majority by more than 31,000 voters. And I mentioned, I believe that there is some impact of the failures of the Trump administration. 8,500 Republicans have left the party, and the majority of those were in the last 2 years. And to me, that communicates a desire for more responsive leadership, more responsible leadership. And it's also a function of a lot of people moving to the district, because I mentioned how expensive we are. Our neighbors to the north, Denver, they're even more costly. And so we have a lot of millennials and young families that are moving to the district who, just looking at the data, statistically tend to vote left. And so we are really running a very data-driven campaign, trying to be smart in our targeting. And because this district is so tough, we have struggled with fundraising, which is, of course, what drives everything in a campaign. And so, every penny of the $130,000 that I have raised has been hard fought. And I will say, I'm very proud to say that as of his last filing, Congressman Lamport had only raised $105,000 from individuals. And the other $250,000 that he had is from interest groups and PACs. Mm. And so I think that speaks to a popular support for this campaign. And it's also a factor of, I'm just willing to outwork him. I take that mom approach, I stay awake until the work is done. I'm the kind of person that can't relax on a day off because I still know I have A, B, C, D, E to get done.
That sounds really familiar.
And it also kind of sounds like the kind of people we should have running our country. It's really unacceptable to me that Congress has gone home in recess without passing aid packages for families. And I'm receiving messages from Coloradans who have been waiting on unemployment checks since July. And the mom in me just aches because we know that there are millions of kids that are going to bed hungry at night. And now we have schools struggling to remain open. And I've been really impressed with our own school district. They do have their cafeterias up and running so people can come pick up meals because, a lot of families depend on that free and reduced school lunch, which incidentally, my opponent votes against whenever he has a chance. And it just frustrates me to no end because he purports himself to be this like family values guy, but every time he has a chance to prove it, he votes against families. He voted against the free and reduced school lunch. He voted against CHIP, the Children's Health Insurance Program. We just found a radio ad from 2018 where he bragged about voting to repeal the Affordable Care Act more than 50 times. I'm like, I don't know if he's never experienced a pre-existing condition or faced a serious health condition, but now here we are in the middle of a pandemic. Millions of Americans have lost their jobs and therefore their health insurance, and he's calling for less care for our vulnerable people, for our families. There is zero compassion there. That is not a family value. And that's why I want to take my experience as a healthcare provider who directly assists families and put that model of care into our government because this is our future. My daughters are 2 and 5. They see what we're doing.
Yeah.
And they need to see leadership that has, well, for one thing, a backbone, but also, that our governing body is representative. Right now, even after a record number of women being elected in 2018, we are still less than 24% of Congress. And just generationally, the 60, 70 something men that are in Congress, they did not actually raise their families. They didn't change the diapers. They didn't navigate getting kids to, doctor's appointments and carting them back and forth to school. And, oh, you have soccer practice and you have gymnastics and, all of the million things that moms are constantly managing. That skill set and that life experience isn't reflected in our governing body, and our country is suffering because of it. And I don't like to pull the woman card, so to speak, but representation matters and life experience matters. And so one of the proudest moments on this campaign for me was when she's 5 now. She just turned 5, just lost her first tooth. But she told me, Mommy, when I grow up, I'm going to run for Congress too. And this is where that modeling behavior comes in. When kids see their moms running, then it's just normal to want to serve your country and your community in this way. And so she really, she pushes me every day, but she also pushes me every day to be a better human and to work to make sure that this country serves her and will meet her needs as she grows into an adult.
So what sort of campaigning are you doing? This, in the midst of a pandemic in a district as, disparate as yours, how do you do that? How do you campaign? And what are you hearing from people as you talk to voters?
Zoom, and more Zoom. We are also doing a lot of outreach via social media. We are about to start an ad campaign with a 30-second piece that I really think communicates the values of my campaign and me personally. We also have been doing no-knock literature drops for 6 weeks now, because I don't feel good about exposing my volunteers and my voters to that kind of public health risk. And so we have folks just leaving a nice piece of literature right at doors. We're also texting and calling, and we have a debate confirmed. Congressman Lamborn has so far declined to participate. That was not a surprise, but we're not quitting. We're going to continue the pressure to get him to come, because the public deserves an opportunity to hear why he voted against the CARES Act, why he voted against the HEROES Act, and have a chance to ask questions about what his intentions are going forward, because we're facing multiple crises at once. We have a pandemic that has killed at least 200,000 Americans, and we're not done. We have unemployment numbers at record levels. And the fact of the matter is, a lot of these jobs are never going to come back. And so we need to make plans beyond the short-term relief that families need, so that we can create a federal jobs program that provides jobs that pay a living wage and also meet the infrastructure needs that we have. Because now everybody complains about how crappy our roads are. We need somebody to work on them. And so getting to work on those roads and bridges and updating our infrastructure to meet the needs of our country, we have to do it. It's a pressing need. We also had a really inspiring success here in the community. And we talked a little bit about how historically red this district is. Our utilities company in Colorado Springs is actually municipally owned. And so every 5 years, the public has the opportunity to participate in the energy planning portfolio process. And the popular support for renewables pushed this board that has historically been all fossil fuels all the time to close a coal plant that burns in the middle of downtown by 2023 and replace it with renewables.
Wow.
And what was really interesting about it was that the advisory board actually told them, the city council, they should vote for new natural gas in place of that coal plant. But the president came out after the decision was made and said, listen, the public showed up, they demanded renewables, and that's the direction we're going. And to me, that speaks to the power that we have when we come together as a community and say, no, this isn't good enough. We want change. This is a measurable impact. And it's another reason that I believe we can flip this district, because if a city this red can go green, it can vote blue.
Yeah, I love that. So this is one of the most gorgeous places in the country. I remember going to Colorado Springs many, many, many years ago and going to the top of Pikes Peak, and it's just beautiful.
Purple Mountain Majesty. That's the song was written about Pikes Peak.
I wish we could all come out and help volunteer, but I suspect a lot of people aren't doing a whole lot of traveling these days.
Don't.
So I'm not. So how can our listeners help your campaign from home without putting themselves at risk?
Well, the easiest way is to contribute financially, because all of the volunteer activities that I was describing, they are driven by money. Sending text costs money, sending postcards costs money, even the literature that we leave at doors, that costs money. I also have an amazing staff, including childcare providers, which that is a brand new development. We could not, before 2018, use campaign funds for childcare. And so I couldn't do this without that. And we additionally have the opportunity to do a lot of things from the comfort of your own couch. You can stay in your sweatpants and sit there and send texts. You can make phone calls. We're about to roll out a program doing ringless voicemails, so we don't pester people, but they still receive the message. And these are really easy ways that you can help from anywhere. And so if you head on over to the website, it's very easy to remember. It's just JillianFreeland.com. Just click the volunteer button, fill out your information. My wonderful husband, Dylan, is my volunteer coordinator. He will be in touch and get you hooked up, because You know, this guy, well, in quotations here, represents this district, but his policies impact the entire country. And especially when we look at climate change, it impacts the whole world. So anything that people can do, please step up. We're in this together. We have to fight this fight together too.
Well, and I know everyone is concerned with the U.S. Senate for good reasons. So if they want to flip a Senate seat, helping turn out voters in your district will help flip a Senate seat in Colorado.
Absolutely. And the presidency. And to get a little nerdy, this district has a huge impact on statewide races because it's considered historically the Republican stronghold. And so if a Republican does well here, AKA if Cory Gardner does well here, he could potentially take the state. So my volunteers on the ground helping with voter turnout will help John Hickenlooper win the Senate. So again, all in this together, candidates, people in the community, people around the world.
Is there anything else that you want to make sure we talk about tonight?
Wash your hands, people, and wear a mask.
Indeed. I maybe soon. I've got some RBG fabric that I had bought several weeks ago and hadn't gotten around to making a mask of. So it's going to need to be a mask, I think, now in honor.
Oh, yes. Yes, yeah. Absolutely.
All right. Well, Jillian, thank you so much for taking time to talk to me. And thank you for stepping up and running. It's so important that we get more moms of young kids in Congress. So I love it. Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity. Take care.
Thank you for listening to Two Broads Talking Politics, part of the Demcast Podcast Network. Our theme song is called Are You Listening off of the album Elephant Shaped Trees by the band Immunuri, and we're using it with permission of the band. Our logo and other original artwork is by Matthew Weflin and was created for use by this podcast. You can contact us at twobroadstalkingpolitics@gmail.com or on Twitter or Facebook at Two Broads Talk. You can find all of our episodes at twobroadstalkingpolitics.com or anywhere podcasts are found.